morning. So this is what 28 degrees feels like. And you all get a gold star for being here this morning. Yay. And snuggle up together and help keep each other warm. I think there's more folks still coming that are in the class maybe behind us. They'll gather shortly. Well, welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church, where compassion leads us to work for justice and equality. I'm really glad you came today. It's my hope that you will find something here that nourishes your heart, feeds your mind, and grows your spirit. My name is Carol Kappa, and I'm your worship associate this morning. If you are a spiritual seeker, if you're an atheist or a theist, Westside is a community of many beliefs, genders, and sexualities, a community of diverse racial, cultural, and class backgrounds. We're a community of varied abilities and beliefs, and some people here find great inspiration in the great books, others in the great outdoors, and others still in just great conversations. But whoever you may be, all are welcome in this inclusive congregation. So to newcomers and old friends both, together we say, welcome. And at Westside, we are raising the next generation of Unitarian Universalists, and we want them to know that they are an important part of our community. Several years ago, we chose to be radically inclusive and adopt a multi-generational worship service where our services include all family members, so we welcome all children and youth of all ages. There are a number of announcements, as usual, included in your order of service. Please take any of those with you that you might need for reminders this week and to share with others. We want to call your attention again to our upcoming Betting with Love event that's coming up on a Friday night, February the 7th. Tickets are on sale now, and after the service, you can see Dana Tooley outside here at the desk in the library. The proceeds for this year on this event that we're having, all the proceeds are going to go to benefit Westside's Debt-Free in 3 campaign. And so if you're a member here, you probably know a little bit about that. You'll be hearing more about it soon and as we go on into the stewardship campaign. But we hope you'll come that night. It's a fun event, very low-key, low-pressure, but fun. If you've ever wanted to learn how to play blackjack, craps, and all those kind of things, you get to come, and we actually give you chips to play with. We'll also be having silent auction and things to help raise funds here for the church. Also, there's a couple of other things I want to talk to you about. We have the following week is a potluck and our pianos dedication. And that's going to be after the service. We'll have a potluck service. Please bring a dish to share if you can. And then come back in here after that. We're going to have a wonderful musical event with performances by Westside musicians. And we're going to dedicate the 2 pianos that we now have. The other thing, I'm a member of the NTUC board. If you don't know what that is, it's just a group of members from all of the 12 North Texas UU congregations, and we oversee a big pot of money that was handed to us many years ago from the sale of a apartment complex. And with that money, we're able to fund things, give grants to churches, and hold different events. Well, this year, I think 3 or 4 of the churches are hitting milestone anniversaries, and we're going to have a big celebration for those churches. The first church in Dallas is 125 years old. Westside is 30. Horizon, I think, is one of these, 55 perhaps. So the service is going to be held over at Horizon in Carrollton on March the 2nd, Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And we would love to have people from all the churches come to be there to celebrate. And there's no cost, of course, but there's catering involved, and they kind of want to know how many people might be coming to get enough food for everybody. So you'll be able to register for that by going to ntuuc.org, and you'll see the anniversary celebration, and I think you click on that and just say if you're coming. In April, there's a 3 Wednesday night thing that's going to happen. I'll tell you more about that soon. You'll be able to attend it online to learn how to write your UU elevator speech. So when somebody says, well, what church do you go to? And you go, Westside Unitarian, they go, well, what's that? and you have like this much time to explain it. And it's not that easy. But this is a way to help you come up with an explanation of the special, wonderful, magical place that we spend time with each week. So that'll be a free thing that you can attend from home, but online 3 Wednesday nights to learn how to do that. Okay, for those of you joining us online or visiting with us today, if you are not already on the mailing list to find out about all this information, please sign up by clicking the link at the bottom of our westsideuu.org website. And for those of you here in person, please take a moment to silence all your devices. So this morning, I'm pleased to welcome back our guest speaker, Dr. Bradley Borougerdi. He's been here twice before. You know how wonderful he is. He's a professor of history in the Global Studies Department at Tarrant County College, where he teaches courses in world civilizations, U.S. history, and African American history. His scholarly areas of expertise include transatlantic history, intercultural transfers, the African diaspora, revolutions and transformations, and the connections between commodities and cultures. That's a mouthful. Bradley, he's a native of Texas, born right here in Fort Worth. He earned BA degrees in history and philosophy, as well as an MA in world history and a PhD in transatlantic history from the University of Texas at Arlington, where he transferred in 2001 after studying at Northlake Community College. He has numerous publications as professor of history at Tarrant County College, and he's the co-founder of Tarrant County Coalition for Peace and Justice, as well as a board member for Southside Community Garden and Build a Better Hood Foundation. He and his wife, Brandy, have a 21-year-old son named Aiden and a 14-year-old daughter named Meadow. His son right now is in China studying Kung Fu, and he will finish his degree at UT this year. So he has a long list of published books and articles, too many to mention, but he's brought a list in case you're interested and would like that list. And when he's in the back of the service, back of the church at the end of the service and to meet you, he'll be glad to give you a copy of his list of publications. So ask him for that. So now I invite you to take a big deep breath with me. And from wherever you are, settle into this sacred space that we create and let us worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude, A Change is Gonna Come, by Sam Cooke, performed by Darren Cote and Dr. Yumi Kumamoto.
I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Now I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knee. Oh, there have been times when I thought I couldn't last for long. Now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.
Wow, it was a great job. I'm going to read some excerpts from a letter from Birmingham jail for your opening and your closing words. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes to read the entire letter, okay? So just give you an idea, it was kind of a task, more than I bargained for, to try to decide which parts to pick for a couple of minutes of reading for the opening and closing words, but here we go. Okay. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. We know through painful historical experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait, be patient. But when you've seen vicious mobs and hate-filled policemen curse, kill, and kick your black brothers and sisters, or you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading whites and colored, plagued with inner fears and outer resentments, and forever fighting a degenerate sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. Time itself becomes an ally to the forces of social stagnation. But there comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into an abyss of injustice where they experience the blackness of corroding despair.
Thank you. And now, as do many Unitarian Universalist congregations, we begin our time together this morning with the lighting of our chalice. I invite Carolyn and Cadence Nixon to come forward and light our chalice this morning. The chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, and it represents the Unitarian Universalist Association, or our UUA. The flaming chalice symbolizes the heritage of our past, the warmth of community, and the light of hope within this church today.
Our chalice lighting words today are Ignite in Us Radical Love by Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This is a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 169 in the gray hymnal, We Shall Overcome. Please stand if you're able and so moved, and join our song leader, Darren Cote. We'll sing all 4 verses.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome We shall live in peace someday.
And please remain standing and join me now in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to work for justice through action, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. You may be seated. And now please come forward if you are young at heart or would like to have a close-up view of our Time for All Ages presented by our unbelievable Director of Religious Education, Nikki Kennedy. And afterwards, we'll sing the children back to their seats with the 7 principles found in the back of your gray hymnal.
Good morning. How many of you had to wear multiple layers to church today? No? Okay, well, y'all are warm-blooded, I think, more so than I am, because I was definitely layered. Good morning. So I want to introduce a word to you. Sankofa. Sankofa. It's a Twi word, and it essentially translates to go back and get it. Okay, so I'm going to read a story, share a story with you. Once upon a time in a village, in a vibrant village surrounded by lush green hills, there lived a wise bird known as the Sankofa. The beautiful bird had bright feathers that shimmered in the sunlight. And it had a special ability. It could fly forward while looking back at its past. The villagers admired the Sankofa and often sought its wisdom. One day, a child approached the bird to ask a question. You see, the child had been feeling confused about their future, who they were becoming, and worried about the choices being made. Excuse me, wise bird, the child called out. How can I find my way when I'm unsure of what lies ahead? The bird flew down from its nest and landed gracefully beside her, its eyes twinkling with kindness. My dear child, the bird said, don't you know we are the authors of our own stories? But to understand our future, we must first learn from our past. The journey of life is like flying. You can look ahead, but remember to glance back at where you've been. The child stared at the bird with a puzzled look. How can looking back help me? The bird replied, think of your experiences. Each mistake and success has taught you something. By reflecting on them, you can make better choices. Just as I fly forward while looking back, you too can move ahead with the wisdom you have gained. Inspired, the child thought about their past and all that they had learned over the years. They remembered the time they were afraid to speak in front of the class, but they had later found great joy in sharing stories and thought, maybe I'll be a writer. They recalled the time they helped a family member while they were not feeling well and thought, maybe I could be a nurse or a doctor. They recalled how fun it had been helping build the neighbor's fence and thought, maybe I could be a carpenter. With each memory, they felt stronger and more confident about who they could be. Now, child, said the bird, What do you want to achieve in your future? I want to be a storyteller, exclaimed the child. I want to share stories that inspire others. The bird smiled. Then remember your past. Embrace your courage and your creativity. Keep reflecting on your past, and it will guide you in your journey. With newfound determination, the child thanked the bird and set off to share their stories with the world, often pausing to remember their past and letting it illuminate their way forward. So many of you know tomorrow is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And as this month we've been talking about stories and exploring stories that guide and that shape us, and MLK's story is no different. MLK had a story to tell, a story of wanting a brighter future for his children and the world's children. By listening to his story, people were inspired to dream of a better future, of a brighter future. And they realized they had the power to create a different story and social change. Our UU of Faith reminds us that by telling a new story or even a different story about what the future can be, we gain the confidence to challenge the idea that things must stay the same simply because it's just the way it is. Stories help us imagine a new way, and if we can imagine it, we can build it. And today in the Wonder Box, these are not Legos today, that is true. Do you know what it sounds like rocks? It's actually paper and pencils and markers and pens. Thank you. And my hope for each of you is that you will find ways to tell your story. Maybe it's in pictures, maybe it's in words, maybe it's in poetry, maybe it's in all the ways, maybe it's a video. But I want you to find ways to tell your story, to dream big, to learn from your past, to help make this place better as we move forward. And each of you has stories to tell, and I hope you will share them. I also hope you have a wonderful week. And my words this week are high fives and hot tea vibes all around. Thank you, guys. Hey, I just wanted to say it's good to see you again, man. It's good to see you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm one of the pastoral care team associates. My name is Debbie Rake. In our community here at Westside, we make time each week to share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because each person in this community has value. Members of the team can be identified wearing their pastoral care team badge. Mine would be right here if I remembered it. Please submit your joys and concerns to the team by completing one of these orange forms at the welcome desk right out here, emailing us at pastoralcare@westsideuu.org, or contacting any member of the team. The other current members of our team are Carol Kappa, Jane Hardwick, John Fisher, Brenda McKean, and Barbara Crotty. Would the members of the team please raise your hand so our congregation can see who you are? Okay. We share our concerns with one another today, knowing that sorrows come into each person's life, knowing that together we offer comfort. As I read your concern, would you please stand or raise your hand so all can know who you are? We only have one. It's from Tricia Bowes, and I don't think she's here today. Is she here? Oh, lovely. Okay. She's with the kids again. Tricia has been suffering from recurring migraines. Hopefully, she'll find answers soon. Oh, yeah, that's tough. We also share our joys with one another. But today, there weren't any except one that I would like to offer myself, and that was the Celebration for Life yesterday for Sharon Salee. It was very well attended, and her family told several of us that they really appreciated how well the service went and how meaningful it was. So we did okay. We make space each week for musical centering, knowing the life and experience of every person matters, and together our lights shine. As we hold all the joys and concerns among us, both those spoken and unspoken, let us sing together number 1009, Meditation on Breathing, in the Teal Hymnal.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Last time. Oh, that was the last time. You told me 3.
Good morning. My name is Diane Austin, and I am your meditation leader this morning. I now invite you to relax your mind and body and join in a time of meditation. Today, we will begin with an introduction titled Here for Beloved Community by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. After the introduction, our bell will sound to signal the start of a minute of silence for your own meditation, prayer, or reflection. And it will sound again at the end. May I be all in for beloved community. May I be all in despite the challenges. May I be all here for beloved community. May I be ready for the beauty because I long for the possibilities. Yes, I am here for beloved community. May I see the beauty of you in community, of us in community. May we be the beauty of beloved community. May we be the dream together. May we be good company to one another in our questions and our journey. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.
Thank you, Diane. Here at Westside, we practice our UU faith in a variety of ways. One of those ways is by giving 100% of our gifts to our weekly collection, unless otherwise designated. And we support organizations who carry out our transcendent values of compassion, justice, and equality. Westside's plate offering for January is the Community Food Bank. Community Food Bank has been in operation for more than 30 years. Helen and Arlen Voldness created a soup kitchen, Loaves and Fishes, in 1982 at Beautiful Feet Church. When it garnered its own location, it became Metroplex Food Bank, but it was destroyed by arson in 2006. Like Westside, it survived a fire and is now located in a large warehouse north of I-30. Today, Regina and Rudy Taylor run the Community Food Bank, which grew significantly under its past chair, the grandmother of Juneteenth, Opal Lee. This nonprofit provides food and other resources Monday through Thursday and helps source smaller food pantries. According to Feeding America's most recent Map the Meal Gap study in 2022, Texas has the highest food insecurity in the nation. Both Texas and Tarrant County's rate exceeds 16% of their populations. Food banks are essential, as nearly 50% of folks facing hunger do not qualify for SNAP, the federal food benefit. At the Community Food Bank, we are simply people serving people, and that means all people. Please give generously as you are able. If you're giving toward your stewardship pledge, though, please use the envelopes at the bottom of the bowl as it's passed. And now, let us enjoy this musical offering, Building a New Way, by Martha Sandifer and performed by Yuki. If you would like to read the text to this powerful selection, it can be found in the Teal Hymnal number 1017. Thank you, Yuki. And now at this time, I welcome Dr. Bradley Borougerdi to the pulpit.
All right, I got these markers here because if I don't, we're going to be here till the sun goes down talking about this topic. So I'm going to try to keep it under 20 minutes. That's my goal. It's kind of difficult to do, but I think I'll make it. Just as a moment of clarification, the bibliography that I have 50 copies, so if you're here with somebody, maybe you can share one. We'll make sure everybody gets one. But it's not, although I did have a hand in the first entry, in writing the first entry, but the bibliography is more of sources that you can consult to dig deeper into this topic that we're going to talk about today. I usually do this oftentimes when I give presentations. I like to make a bibliography for the audience so that they can follow up on a lot of the things that are going to be said. Okay, so back to what I said, or the portion of King's letter of Birmingham jail that I read. You know, those sentiments that King espoused or described at the beginning and middle portions of that letter, which is now quite famous. In fact, the first time I ever read that letter was dictated to me in an ethics class in college. And as I said, it took the whole class period to read it all. It's a very powerful letter, but the sentiments that he has in there are sentiments that are shared by people all around the world, okay? I think that's an important point to highlight here, which is something I would like to do, is to kind of show how we all as humans share commonalities that we oftentimes ignore. You know, culture is something that every human society has developed. It's something that I call like the webs of significance that humanity has spun over the course of our existence, right? And no culture has ever existed in a vacuum. Ever since culture has been created, people have been sharing, it's been moving, it's been transferring from one place to another, right? And of course, history is a byproduct of culture. History is an interpretation of the past. And when you interpret the past, you're using your cultural lens to get to the interpretation that you produce, right? And one element of all cultures that we've seen, particularly as history is being told within them, the interpretations that they have an element of power connected to them. Power, which oftentimes is utilized to establish control, right? Which may oftentimes lead to oppression. We see this in all cultures, an attempt to explain some way of living through instilling some sort of power element or power dynamic that leads to control and oftentimes oppression. And where there is oppression, there is also resistance to oppression, right? And this resistance is something that we also see intricately woven into the fabric of time with all cultures. This mutual relationship, or maybe like cultural thread, I would say, that binds us together, that both inflicts oppression and at the same time creates resistance to it, is common. Now, when you get to the rise of nationalism, the rise of nation states, you're going to start to have a problem with the way history is being told. It oftentimes ignores elements of history, puts us in what we call an analytical cage in the way we tell the story, that oftentimes tries to hide oppression or sweep it under the rug. And in order to liberate our history from this analytical cage, and kind of like expose these connective tissues that exist within cultures, some of us like to employ what we call a transnational lens to demonstrate the connections of history, right? Rather than begin telling history from what we call the perceived positions of differences, we begin with the connections and the assumption that we are all connected. That's what this methodology called intercultural transfer is about. It sort of helps us deal with the pathways by which cultural practices move across seemingly separate societies around the world. It helps us recognize the ties that bind us together. And that's what we're going to do today here in the brief time that I have with you is to think about Martin Luther King's ideas, tracing how they traveled from one place to another, where they came from, transnationalizing Martin Luther King's philosophy by tracing where he got it from, how he kind of shifted it and transformed it. Because this is kind of what happens when culture, even though we all have a thread that binds us together, culture doesn't transfer from one place to another and become a replica when it makes its way into the receiving society. It has to go through some processes of changing along the way. And we'll see that when we map out how Martin Luther King came to these ideas and then what impact they had. So in order to do that, we have to kind of start with some historical context of the late 19th century, early 20th century. Traveling is big, literacy rates are booming, intercultural exchanges are flourishing around the world. Challenges to imperialism are exploding across the world. More publications are being produced. More people are reading those publications. And this leads to a stronger focus on resistance to imperialism, right? That's the context in which this man in 1893, who just took a job for a capitalist imperial company in South Africa by the name of Mahatma Gandhi. Many people, when you look at the image of Gandhi today, maybe won't really recognize him in his fanciest European suit in 1893, headed on a train to Johannesburg, with, in his mind, rather racist elements about darker-skinned people. We tend to forget this about Gandhi as well. He went through a pretty significant transformation in his life. After trying to take this job, buying a first-class ticket on the train, headed to Johannesburg, South Africa, when he's kicked off the train and forced to walk around in the night in a slum, so-called slum neighborhood, and begin to have this epiphany or this realization, right? I mean, his racism prior to this is very well documented, but when this happens to us a lot, we're put into some certain situations and we kind of have this aha moment, right? And in 1893, he came to this realization that, this dehumanizing racial discrimination was rampant throughout the British Empire. And it has a long time history. I don't have time to get into this again. I'll be here all day. But the age of exploration kind of created this otherized contact between Europeans and otherized people who have a lot of resources that kind of develops over a long period of time, what I call this Atlantic world type of racism, right? And colonial elites like Gandhi oftentimes would adopt these oppressive elements. You may have heard of the word colorism in the United States, perhaps, right? Where racism doesn't just affect the victim of racism, it creates divisions within the victims' communities, right? And so Gandhi had this kind of element to him as a colonial elite, but sort of realized no matter how much I'm a lawyer, I'm a trained lawyer, I got my degree in London, no matter how hard I work, no matter how great I am, I'm always going to be considered less because I'm not white. And so he started kind of contemplating and plotting on how best to destroy this venomous system. He read books, he came up with, thinking, contemplating, opening his mind. And this period had a powerful impact on him. He came to the realization through his own experiences that people can change, which is a good thing, right? People can change. People can become aware of their transgressions, realize them, and have tremendous impacts if they do. And so he develops this philosophy that combines Hindu principles with European and American philosophers that are all kind of revolve around three big concepts that are going to be very influential here. One of them is called ahimsa, which is this notion of non-harm, this notion of respect to all living things, this notion that violence is never justified, and that we must avoid violence in thought and action whenever we can. Ashram is another principle of sort of communal, spiritual retreat, this notion of selflessness, this notion of detachment from material possessions, rejection of worldly pleasures, becoming self-sufficient, living a simple life things like this, abandoning his fancy European suit for the garbs that you may recognize today when you think of Gandhi. And then finally, satyagraha, which is this very important concept of winning over the oppressor through love. It literally translates as satya being truth and agraha being firmness or insistence. And so it's kind of like this truth force, if you will, that exists with all humanity, that can be teased out of humanity through love and patience. We can get at the core of this love if we love those who are oppressing us. And Gandhi used this philosophy in South Africa before he made his way back to India, which was also under strict British colonial and imperial control. He goes back in 1915 and he begins to affect a lot of this change, most famously with the 1930 Salt March that you may have heard of. But the idea is that we must stop cooperating with our oppressors, right? People writing books about this idea. It gets recognition all over the world by the 1920s, 1930s. And black Americans in the United States in the 1930s are facing something that historians have referred to as an unfinished revolution, right? Reconstruction had begun to fail after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment were established, and black people were unable to achieve the rights as full citizenships the way they had been working so tirelessly for, right? And one particular individual who was fighting for this unfinished revolution at the time was a man by the name of Howard Thurman. He was a professor at Howard University. He traveled to India in 1936. He met with Gandhi. He learned. He took his wife with him, who was also a staunch civil rights activist, Sue Thurman. Both of them sort of had some reservations about the idea, but they were interested. First off, you know, black people are massively outnumbered by white people in the United States, as opposed to in India. There's about 100,000 British people trying to control 300 million people, and so how are we supposed to work out here when we're being lynched and all these other types of things? And Gandhi helps explain to these travelers that you must make them see their own hate. See their own hate by kindly showing them how much their livelihoods depend on you, how connected we really are. Deprive them of your services and place your bodies in vulnerable positions that will evoke their wrath, and therefore making them irrationally rain violence down upon you and exposing their hatred to the ignorant onlookers. Ignorant by meaning, there's a lot of people in the United States in the 30s and 40s who are racist, but they're generally otherwise good people. They're racist out of ignorance rather than hate. And so the idea is appealing to that inner truth force, that if we can expose this, stir up some feelings, we can get people to remove their blinders. So they're interested in this. They come back to the United States. They share these ideas with a man by the name of Mordecai Johnson, who was president of Howard University. He traveled eventually to India in 1949, a year after Gandhi had been assassinated. But in 1950, he comes back and he gives a presentation about his experience there at Crozer Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania. Which is why I always tell my students, the best learning comes outside of the classroom. I met so many fascinating revolutionaries in UTA just by going outside the classroom and opening my mind for things that are just available. And it's interesting because if a 21-year-old Martin Luther King hadn't happened to show up to that outside of class lecture that Mordecai Johnson gave that day, he may not have learned much about Gandhi's philosophy, but he was there. He had just kind of been going through a transformation himself at 21 years old, right? Again, when we venerate our heroes, we have a tendency not to focus on some of their humanity, but Martin Luther King was not a very good student before this. He partied a lot. He didn't really have much direction. Eventually, by the time he gets to this point in his life, he had decided to follow in the footsteps of his father and his father's father to become a Southern Baptist preacher, which was a quite respectable profession amongst black folks in the South at this time. So he started kind of honing in his skills He had read Marx, he had read Lenin, he had read the philosophy of communism, and there was a lot about it that he liked, except, of course, the lack of religiosity, which helped him refine and adapt his ideas, kind of like I was saying about intercultural transfer, right? Moving these ideas and adapting them to suit his surroundings, right? He's listening to these speeches. He becomes very inspired by this idea of satyagraha, but he also had reservations at first, right? But he gets over those reservations at a perfect time, right when Brown versus Board of Education has emerged, after particularly the brutality is starting to be exposed, most famously with the Emmett Till story. It's almost like a ripening period where things converge and he sort of begins to find his calling. And he uses this satyagraha philosophy of boycotts, marches, fasting, prayer groups, and things like that to help evoke change in Montgomery, particularly, thank you very much, for the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. Now he's becoming popular. He takes his message transnationally as well in 1957 when he shows up to Ghana's celebration of independence from the British Empire. Interestingly, Nixon was there as well, and there's a famous story of Nixon going up to some black people there, asking them, how does it feel to be finally be free? And they looked at him and they said, we don't know, we're from Alabama. Right? I think it shows that transnational element, right? And I think that's what makes King so powerful, is that he's recognizing things around the world that need to be done here, right? And when he returns, he kind of polishes up his form of what I like to call militant, nonviolent, direct action, right? This isn't a passive resistance movement. It's quite confrontational. It's quite active. It's quite militant in its nonviolence. It's quite determined in its nonviolence. And he again, by 1959, he's having a lot of success, and he makes his own pilgrimage to India, where he pays homage to his these ideas that served as foundations for him. But, you know, he never really fully embraced the full package of these ideas. Ahimsa, for example, was something that was an issue for Dr. King. You know, he had a problem with some worldly pleasures, right? He was a significant overeater. He drank a lot of alcohol. He smoked a lot of cigarettes, and he had some problems with womanly affection. These were vices that he tried. Evidence shows that he tried, but seems to have had a difficult time to resist. And not only the fact that, you know, he's around all this temptation, the stress of death constantly at his doorstep. He's traveling sometimes 350 days out of a year. He's had a rough life. But I think it's important to point this stuff out because, like all of us, King was deeply flawed. And I think that is what makes him great, is the fact that he admitted these flaws. He tried to correct himself, as we all try to do. But when we venerate these people and think of them as, like, you know, godlike figures, we take out an element of humanity about them. And I think it's important to notice that because it helps us know that we too can aspire to be great, even with our own transgressions. And I think what matters most about King is the responsibilities that he took upon himself and put on his shoulders in the face of adversity. That's what makes him great, right? You know, if someone tries to blackmail you, for example, with knowledge of all your moral failings, like the FBI and many people did to him, you can still show the courage to do what's right, even though your reputation is on the line, as King did, right? If someone tries to strong-arm you away from your core principles that you believe in or threaten you, you still can refuse to back down in the face of death even. Again, as King often did during his time as a revolutionary. These are the things I think that make Martin Luther King Jr. great. Not some sort of perfect or image of moral purity that you may have projected upon him. And I think we owe it to ourselves and to our children to acknowledge this so that more people can see that they too can become great as well. It is the deep sacrifice, the unwavering commitment to righteous principles in the face of tremendous danger that makes King worthy of remembrance. The things that he had done, the things that he was participating in, particularly in the Birmingham campaigns, the famous March on Washington, the Selma and Montgomery struggles, all of these things show King to be this radical mover of the pillars of democracy, the redeemer of the nation, which he tried to take upon himself for everyone. And this certainly had a tremendous influence on helping the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65. I'm almost finished, I'm sorry. But, you know, everybody, you see all these achievements, and today we like to see how King's legacy was so influential to them. But, you know, when they were achieved, the vast majority of people in the United States did not like Martin Luther King. He did not have the reputation. A lot of people were jealous of him. A lot of people just simply did not like him. And then after the '65, it gets even worse for him because 80% of the population of the United States is supporting the war in Vietnam. And Lyndon B. Johnson, who helped get the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act passed, he breaks with him and says this is a moral failing, right? And now his reputation plunges even more. But he doesn't do what other people want him to do. He does what he thinks is right at all costs, and I think that's very important. This beloved community philosophy you've heard people talk about here today, I think, is very powerful. And I think it's important to understand because, you know, people oftentimes leave out the beloved community idea in their venerations of King because, you know, he started to put himself on the opposing side of the United States during the Cold War. And his positions and beliefs were becoming increasingly more unpopular. I mean, he specifically said before his death that the greatest purveyor of violence in the world was the United States of America. And we need to address poverty. We need to address things that other people are chalking up to communist rhetoric. And so this brotherly love philosophy of a multiracial society is something that many people today would coil away from. Nobody in this room, thank God, I think, would coil away from that. But, you know, we're in a position right now where we may be in a point where we need King's commitment again starting tomorrow because it takes tremendous adversity and dedication to stand up for something when everybody around you is telling you not to. And that's what King should be remembered for, standing up when the past is trying to silence him. Thank you very much.
We're about to sing our final hymn, and before we do that, I found some information about this hymn that I felt was important for me to share with you before we sing. Reflections on Lift Every Voice and Sing by Aisha Ansano. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a time when particular songs get sung. One of them is Lift Every Voice and Sing. It gets sung in schools, in church, and at various MLK Day celebrations or over the course of Black History Month. It's a very, very powerful song, but it's often sung without context. We don't think about what we're singing. We just stand up and, just sing the words. When you sing Lift Every Voice and Sing, do you pay close attention to the words? It's easy on a Sunday morning to open the hymnal and sing without necessarily processing what we're saying, what the words we're saying really mean. This song deserves to be sung with attention. It's a song that starkly names the horrors and violence of racism in this country, and it is a song that should make us uncomfortable with the history that it calls upon, uncomfortable with the fact that the struggle for racial justice continues and has not come quite so far as it should have by now. How can anyone sing the words, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, without a deep, deep discomfort? So when we sing this song, will you join me in singing with intentionality? Will you join me in the deep discomfort that I will be feeling in singing those words? Discomfort with the pain and horror of those words that refer back to, and discomfort with the fact that those words do not only refer to a distant history, but also what is happening now? Will you commit to sitting with your own discomfort, and then will you tap into that discomfort and do something? Will you lift your voice and sing until earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty? So please rise as you are able and join together now in singing our closing hymn, number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Last words from the end area of Letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, because we are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be open with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light, so too injustice must be exposed, with all the tensions its exposure creates, to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion, before it can be cured. Let us all hope that the dark clouds of racial prejudice will soon pass away and the deep fog of misunderstanding will be lifted from our fear-drenched communities, and in some not too distant tomorrow, the radiant stars of love and brotherhood will shine.
Our chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of you. It was John F. Kennedy that said, "We are not here to curse the darkness, but to light a candle that can guide us through the darkness to a safe and sure future." And now please join me in our congregational closing. Go in peace, seeking justice. Go in peace, committed to equal rights and opportunities for all. Go in the peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity, deep compassion, and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Have a great week.